Now at 6 and streaming on crossroadstoday.com, a man in El Campo sentenced to life in prison for murder.
The legal battle over Texas Senate Bill 4 continues to play out. The High Court now extending the freeze in the controversial immigration bill.
And the Salvation Army of Victoria is now open for business, the first life enrichment center of its kind in the Crossroads.
Will be cloudy and windy for the next couple of days, kind of like this, but the weekend is very different. In fact, it might feel like winter. We'll be talking about the big changes for the weekend coming up in just a moment.
And the Houston Texans just got a whole lot better, and we had Victoria West in Corpus today. I'll have that in sports.
You're watching 25 News now at 6. Good evening and thank you for joining us. I'm Don Brubaker.
And I'm Karina Garcia. An update to breaking news last night. Around 9:10, Victoria police officers responded to a crash on North Navarro Street. They say a 65-year-old man on a bicycle traveling southbound was hit from behind by a truck. At last report, that man is in critical condition. No citations were issued. An El Campo man was convicted of capital murder. Brandon James was found guilty of shooting and killing Shane Singleton during a 2021 robbery in El Campo. After a week-long trial, the jury deliberated for about an hour before convicting James. He is sentenced to life in state prison. Because James is 19 years old, he will be eligible for parole in 40 years.
A suspect wanted in Goliad was arrested in Refugio this afternoon. Luis Duani of Louisville, Kentucky is accused of pulling a knife and trying to cut multiple co-workers at a Goliad solar plant work site this morning. Duani fled to Refugio, where he was arrested on 3 counts of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon and 1 count of attempted murder. He is in the Goliad County Jail with no bond set. 2 men are dead and 16 undocumented migrants apprehended following a pursuit in Encino, just an hour outside Laredo. The incident happened Monday night around 10:30. A pursuit involving a semi-tractor trailer and U.S. Border Patrol, along with the help of the Encino Police Department, ended when the trailer crashed into the gate of Encino Cemetery. 1 suspect is now in custody, and the incident is under investigation by DPS and the Texas Rangers.
Now let's take a look at your forecast with Chief Meteorologist Mac Perez, who tells us we are getting ready for a little bit of chill.
What?
Yep, the chill's coming this weekend, but in between here and there, we've got a roller coaster to deal with. Look at these temperatures for tomorrow. About 80 for us. With all the cloud cover, you think would be cooler, but we're going to be warmer. And hello to our friends in Laredo. They're going to be 98 tomorrow. So yes, it's very summer-like now, but the weekend's going to be very different with a cool north wind blowing. We'll have all that coming up in just a few minutes, so stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Mac, thank you. A U.S. military helicopter crashed Friday afternoon near the southern border, killing 2 soldiers and a U.S. Border Patrol agent.
The 2 soldiers were from the New York area, both with deep ties to their local communities.
He was so proud of it, and he actually showed us videos and was so excited about being in the field.
John Gracia's high school math teacher, recalling the time he visited students at his alma mater a few years after he graduated. Michelle Guzik says John was a great student.
He didn't excel in math, but he came in with a smile on his face every single day. He sat in the front of the room. He answered questions. He was a fun kid.
A fun kid who enjoyed BMX and motocross, who many say had a kind heart, destined to serve others.
He was a fair person, and knowing the background that he had, he was more understanding of what is right and what is wrong.
Less than a half hour away in Rensselaer, another community grieving the loss of Casey Frankowski.
She joined in 2016. She was part of the National Guard. She became an aviator roughly around 2019.
After first leaving a mark in her hometown where her father was the Rensselaer City Police Chief and where her brother works as a detective now. The department sharing this post on Facebook saying, Casey always had a way of brightening our hallways and bringing smiles to our faces when she visited. The 28-year-old also being remembered by the Best Luther Fire Department, where she volunteered.
We definitely come together as a family during tragedies like these, especially our chaplain here is talking with the service members that are still in Texas and checking on their well-being and seeing how they're doing. But it's hard.
Given such a short amount of time, it's clear Frankowski and Gracia made lasting impacts on their communities and beyond.
He left this world doing what he loved best. And I guess what we have to do is we have to carry on his legacy and making sure that we also are here to serve others before ourselves.
The Uvalde police chief, who was on vacation during the Robb Elementary School shooting, resigned today. Daniel Rodriguez's resignation comes days after a review of the shooting response cleared all local officers of any wrongdoing. He tells a local paper the decision comes in the best interest of his family. 19 children and 2 teachers died in that massacre, which is now described as a failure of leadership, resulting in children being trapped with the gunman for more than an hour. A temporary block on the controversial Texas immigration law was extended to March 18th. Under this law, called Senate Bill 4, police have the power to arrest migrants who they suspect illegally entered the country from Mexico, and authorities could impose criminal penalties. A temporary block on this law was extended by Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito. The law was halted by a federal judge after the White House sued. Although a federal appeals court later said the law could go into effect if the Supreme Court declines to weigh in.
After nearly 4 years of building and planning, the new Salvation Army Life Enrichment Center is now open in Victoria, ready to help those that need help. The Life Enrichment Center includes a medical clinic staffed with Texas A&M residency students, a library, showers, washer and drying station, just to name a few things. Captain Kenny Jones with the Victoria Salvation Army says that the Life Enrichment Center will help those that are in need make a step forward towards a better life.
It's just amazing how many volunteers and people stepped up to help us, and I'm overwhelmed. You know, I'm ready for this program to change the community.
Now that the Life Enrichment Center is complete, renovations will begin on the rest of their location, which will include a renovated men's shelter and a brand new and much needed women's shelter.
District 2 Victoria ISD board member Bridget Marshall has one opponent in the May 4th race. His name is Andrew Rokovich.
And here's today's viewer poll. Who are you supporting in the Victoria ISD board member District 2 race? Bridget Marshall, Andrew Rokovich, or Not My District? Let's look at the numbers. Looks like 5% for Bridget Marshall, 5% for Andrew Rokovich, 90% not in my district. All right, we thank you for voting. We want to hear from you. Come to crossroadstoday.com/vote to take part, and we'll have an update on 25 News now at 10. And remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Crossroads Today. Hit the like button and click the notification bell so you can see Crossroads Today on YouTube. Stay with us. A man who was cited for having his wheelchair in the street. That's coming up on 25 News Now at 6.
Also ahead, we get ready for the grand opening of the Riverside Duck Pond.
Sergeant First Class and Senior Instructor and Senior Coach for the United States Army Marksmanship Unit Rifle Team, Army veteran Rand Benson is your military hero for February 2024. He was born on an Air Force base in the Philippines because his father was in the Air Force. Rand going on to join the services himself, going on to join the United States Army. In his childhood, he moved around quite a bit.
Alaska, Minnesota, Wisconsin, a lot of northern areas, but my dad retired and we moved to Georgia, so that was a big shock going from Alaska to Georgia in the middle of June.
In part joining the service to honor his late father.
My father passed away before I graduated high school, so I kind of to honor him, I just ended up joining the Army myself and made a career out of it.
It was always something he wanted to do with uncles in the service, and Rand being the only one out of his brothers to join. Once he joined the Army, he went infantry and airborne at Fort Benning, Georgia, doing a variety of jobs.
Well, see, that's what's interesting about the Army. People think that when you go in and you enlist, that's what you're going to do forever. Not at all. You're constantly changing jobs.
Rand would find that he was an exceptional marksman, so good that he would win prestigious awards and break numerous records. A formative experience for him and his time in the Army.
I don't know, I guess I had a knack for it because when I was shooting one day, I shot a perfect score on what was called a FORSCOM scaled target at the time, and it just so happened the battalion commander was walking behind me, and he said, let me see that target. And he said, Sergeant, I want you to form a team and win the 82nd Airborne Division matches this year. I said, yes, sir.
After forming the team, they would go on to beat the 101st Airborne Division team, among other numerous wins and accolades. He was later transferred to Korea to work as a sniper on the DMZ before spending 12 years on the Army Marksmanship Unit at Fort Benning, Georgia. He earned the Distinguished Rifleman's Badge and the President's 100. Not many have gotten those high-level marksmanship awards.
Long-range rifle shooting is my specialty, and also teaching it. I was actually teaching instructors how to teach shooting. I wasn't just teaching students. I actually developed all the training programs we still use to this day for the squad designated marksman, for the marksmanship improvement course, for the leaders, train the trainers course. I developed all that material when I was there.
From Navy SEALs to Army Rangers and even American sniper Chris Kyle, Rand was the one who taught them.
I had Chris Kyle in one of my courses out on Naval Special Warfare Group 1 on West Coast. We used to go out to Coalinga, California, as a civilian range, and just with the Navy SEALs, and we'd go out there. I taught a couple of courses out there, and they called me old man. That's why when I watched that movie, I said, "Wait a minute, they're talking about Chris Kyle. Chris Kyle was," you know. But I mean, I'm not saying I'm taking credit for everything he did, but I taught him the prone unsupported position with sling, because some of those guys just couldn't figure out how to get in a sling supported position.
Teaching his students to practice correctly.
You know, practice doesn't make perfect. My axiom is perfect practice makes perfect. So if you practice mistakes, that's what you got. So, you know, I taught them, you know, how to practice for results, you know, practice more perfectly, if you will. And you hear this nonsense about humidity and barometric pressure and all this. I mean, I'm like, really? If you hold it hard and you got the wind, you got most of it licked. You got most of your problem there.
Rand also recalled shooting a bolt-action .50 caliber rifle.
You know, but it had a really nice muzzle brake and a really nice recoil dampening system in the buttstock. So it was one of the, for a bolt-action .50 cal, it wasn't too brutal.
After serving for 20 years and 5 months, Rand retired from the military and did some consulting work and worked in Alaska. He eventually felt a calling from God, so he went into ministry and became a chaplain, and now works in hospice here in Victoria.
And, you know, and someone says, well, yeah, but now you're in hospice. I said, well, yeah, but you learn more about life when you're at the end of it than you did in all the years before it. Trust me, when your priorities change, when things change, all those things that seem important, not so important anymore. You know, those things that you neglected, those things are very important now. And so my job is to be there to help them sort through it, you know, help them to just overcome any guilt or you know, put it all behind, reconcile, you know, forgive, all those things. That's what I'm there for. And it's important. If you're going to leave this earth, we all are, right? To make peace before you do. It's very important.
Rand's motto, to make peace with God.
I believe this, that if we make peace with God, God makes peace with us. And that's a good place to be when you leave this earth. I think that's the best thing you can hope for.
So thank you, Rand, for your service to your country, and thank you to all veterans out there. I also wanted to take a moment to thank my dad, Rock Seibel. He's an Air Force veteran. I always remember he told me just a few days after graduating high school, he was on the bus to boot camp. He may not be a Victoria native, but he still served and has had a great impact on my life and the lives of others. So I just wanted to take this chance to thank you for your service, Dad, and to your country. So thank you. Adam Seibel, KAVU TV 25 News Now.
A North Texas man was issued a warning after riding his wheelchair in a street.
Yeah, he says he did it because the ground was wet and there was no sidewalk.
Independency matters most to Damian Hudlin. He was born with spinal bifida.
In 2015, I lost my leg to bone infection, and that's how I ended up in a wheelchair.
But he's never felt he had a disability.
My siblings will tell you now, I don't have a disability.
That is until Saturday. Damian was leaving this 7-Eleven on Wintergreen Road in DeSoto, heading home just up the street when a police officer stopped him.
First of all, he stopped in front of me, basically blocking me from going, and hops out and proceeds to ask me and tell me I couldn't be in the street. I said, well, there's no sidewalk.
Damian says it had been raining earlier that day and the grass was muddy.
You not being in a wheelchair, you wouldn't know how hard it actually is, you know, to get through stuff like that.
The officer offered him a ride home, but Damian says he was already close. The officer wrote him a warning citation.
He just told me, plain and simple, the next time he sees me in the street, he's gonna give me a ticket.
The citation says Damian was not facing traffic, but he says if he were to cross the street, it would have been even more dangerous, and the sidewalk ends there too.
I could lose my life. You say you worried about my safety and my life, then do something about it.
Damian's aunt Yvette Boyer shared the citation on Facebook.
If the traffic is going 40 miles an hour and he's in a manual wheelchair, he's risking his life, either side.
DeSoto police responded, saying it's policy to give written warnings to anyone they pull over, even if they would not normally act upon them. Although the warning says Damian must appear in court or a warrant will be issued for his arrest, the city of DeSoto tells us he doesn't have to go to court. Both the city and police say they're willing to work with him to get sidewalks added.
All I asked was for a sidewalk, that's it. That's it. I don't need you to pay me for the rest of my life. I just want a sidewalk.
A public need to continue living independently.
The reopening of the Riverside Park Duck Pond ribbon cutting ceremony comes Thursday morning. It starts at 10 o'clock. The free event will feature guest speakers, including State Representative District 30, Jeannie Morrison. She will speak on behalf of the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department, which helped to fund the improvements. The event is open to the public. Now the question is, Mac, how the weather will be for that.
I got you covered for that one. For those of you going down there to the duck pond, it's going to be very nice weather. A little warm, a little windy, but all things considered, not bad. Right now we're at 76 degrees. We managed only to get up to 78. It's kind of counterintuitive. You get cloud cover and you get warmer. You'd think, oh, we're going to be cooler because we're protected from the sun, but not necessarily because high pressure is on top of us. Now, the weekend, boy, that's going to be different. We're going to be talking about a change, a roller coaster in temperatures coming up in just a moment. Stay tuned. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Here are your headlines for the next couple of days. We're going to be on the warm, windy side for a couple of more days, in fact, most of this week. But then things start changing on us, folks. We're going to pick up a much stronger wind over the next couple of days, and that is going to make things a little bit on the humid side. Now, while we're doing that, let me go over here and push the button. We are looking at a big change as we get to the weekend, because the two frontal systems are going to be moving down to our area, giving us a rainy and cooler weekend. I can't even say the word cooler. And there you see the overcast that's on top of us. That's going to be with us next 2-3 days. We're watching out to the west. That's where the next frontal system is located. The high clouds you'd think might give us a cool down, but we are going to be in the 80, 82 range for the next couple of days. Here are the temperatures. You can see them right about there. We're going to be up to 82, 83, and then all of a sudden we start dropping the temperature department. As a matter of fact, by the time we get to Monday of next week, we may be in the mid 60s. Now, those of you who get up early, you may have just patchy fog. It's not a widespread thing. It'll be just in the lower valleys where there's no wind blowing. And again, it all blows off fairly rapidly. Now, as we're looking ahead, temperatures tomorrow about 80 for us. Look at that, 98 in Laredo. I don't know what they're doing out there, but it'll be a warm day all over the entire state, as you see. Now, the temperatures are going to be a little bit on the rock and roll side as we get to the weekend because they're going to be changing quite a bit. We are looking at your Thursday map here, not today being Tuesday. On Thursday, we do have a chance for getting some big storms up in North Texas, as far south maybe as Waco or Killeen. Austin maybe is on the outer edge of it. We're not included, but that's okay. But that's on Thursday. The front actually gets here for us on Friday. Now, where is it? It's out there on the west coast. It's coming in. It's a big storm in the Central Plains, and it is going to be causing us to have that strong gusty south wind. Now, at this point in time, I'm expecting it to come through here late Friday night or early on Saturday with that rain chance. Now, it's a significant rain opportunity right now. Could be up to half an inch, maybe up to an inch. And then the irony of it all, right behind it, we get another front, which is coming in from the north. Now, that one's going to be interesting because that one will be requiring us to maybe get a windbreak or a jacket next week. So 78 tomorrow, partly cloudy to mostly cloudy, 81 out in Cuero. We'll take a look at your extended outlook, and here we go. 80, 82, 82, and then frontal system by Saturday gets us down into the mid 70s with a 40% chance of rain. And then we get a little bit of a break on Sunday, but still will be cooler and damp. And then the second front comes in on Monday, getting us down to the mid 60s. So I guess you can call that a roller coaster of temperatures. That is your 7-day forecast. Take a look at your QR code. Love for you to scan that. Put Crossroads Today on your phone. We'll toss it over to Karina.
Thank you, Mac. And now here's sports reporter Zach Brown.
The always unpredictable NFL offseason gets even crazier, and we got some baseball and softball scores as well coming up in sports. The Texans went from maybe losing day one of free agency to making one of the biggest moves in the early going of this offseason. Joe Mixon traded to Houston for what is reportedly a 7th-round pick. The Bengals were originally going to release him. Houston, maybe wanting to avoid bidding in free agency, got a little aggressive. This, of course, after missing out on Saquon Barkley, amongst others. Mixon attended the University of Oklahoma. He's got a checkered past, which the Texans are known for passing on, but not this time around. And that will lead us to your viewer poll. Do you like the addition of Joe Mixon on the Texans? Yes or no? 65% of you guys say yes. 35% say no. He's an excellent running back. The Texans roster got a lot better, but could be a PR problem. But hey, the roster got a lot better. And speaking of running backs, another running back on the move, Texans killer Derrick Henry going to a contender. Baltimore gets him for 2 years worth $16 million, $9 million of that fully guaranteed. So he is out of the AFC South, but the path to a Super Bowl could get tougher for Houston if things go as planned in Baltimore. And another Bengal that the Texans could have some interest in, T. Higgins, who was franchise tagged, but that wasn't good enough for him. He wanted a long-term deal. There has reportedly been no progress. He has requested a trade from Cincy. Houston could use another receiver. They have the draft capital and cap space and have been listed as a team that could swing for a deal. Just something to pay attention to as the days and weeks go on. And speaking of swinging for the deal and Texans, Victoria West softball taking on the Ray Texans, trying to get a midweek victory and stay hot. The girls winners of 4 of the last 5, and they get started off with an RBI single off the bat of Lily Chavez to give Victoria West the early lead. The first 4 Warriors reached the base in this one, and they also got great pitching from sophomore Zaylee Flores. The West ladies grabbed a 13-3 victory, have won 4 in a row, and are now 1-0 in district play, heating up at just the right time. Refugio with the 26-10 win over the Yorktown Wildcats. The Lady Cats move to 2-1 in district play. They get Porter Ranzis in Refugio tomorrow. Yorktown gets Woodsboro. We had another 13-3 final score. The Edna Cowboys beating Rice Consolidated. Edna snaps its 2-game losing streak and are now 1-1 in district play. They have quite the challenge coming up on Friday. They get Hallettsville. And speaking of Hallettsville, they're 9-3 to start the year. Just beat Shiner 2-1. They get Yoakum tonight in Yoakum. The Brahmas winners of their last 3. Yoakum has lost their last 3. They're trying to get back in the win column tonight. And if adding Joe Mixon wasn't enough, Houston addressed the D-line need as well. Danielle Hunter from Minnesota. He was a Pro Bowler in 2018, 19, 22, and 23. So the Texans looking strong. That's it for your sports. Donna Karina, back to you.
Thanks, Zach. We're back in a moment. A group of high school students in Michigan were selected for a SpaceX mission. Find out how next.
Finally tonight, SpaceX is launching its 30th resupply mission to the International Space Station. Along with cargo for the astronauts, the capsule will carry some homegrown experiments from students in Michigan. 6 high school students were brought together in 2022 at a space camp called Go for Launch. With their experiment pitch, they beat every other team in Michigan. Team Space Shell 6 has raised enough money for them and their families to go to Cape Canaveral. What a thrill that has to be for those young people. Then coming up with this idea to have different kinds of foods in space.
I would have a lot of trouble at that place because they say go for lunch.
Go for lunch.
And I'm going to lunch. You know?
Like, wait a minute.
No, wrong lunch.
Well, is it going to be a nice day for lunchtime tomorrow?
I think so, yes. Next couple of days are going to be warm and windy, but will be about 80 degrees all the way through. And of course, what is it, Thursday? They got the opening of the duck pond. The duck pond?
Yes.
Yeah, that's going to be a good day. Friday gets interesting because we have that front approaching. I don't think it'll get here until Saturday morning. And Saturday does have about a 40% chance of rain. And then cooler weather. We might actually need sweaters by Monday. So a little bit of a roller coaster on the temperature department, but that's what we call fall in South Texas.
All right. Thank you, Mac, and thanks for joining us.
We hope to see you back here tonight for 25 News Now at 10.